All my friends are dead, all my friends are dead, running through my head with these stupid dads. All my friends are dead, all my friends are dead, running through my head, these stupid dads. This writing is bullshit. Oh my fucking god, this writing really sucks. AMFAD, aka All My Friends Are Dead. Oh me, oh my, down on the cheap slasher bayou. Good fucking grief. What the fuck was this movie supposed to be? It's on Amazon if you want to check it out. If you want to subject yourself to one of the worst, dumbest motherfucking horror movies of the decade so far. Derivative, cheap, repetitive, ripping off ideas left, right, and center, featuring, well, a cast that certainly tries. I really don't want to dump on the actors for actually trying, but they were trying to elevate this fucking script that was written. There was a story by one person, and it was written by two other people. It was directed by the guy, by the way, who did The Collector, The Collection, and Unhuman. Oh boy, the holy trinity of horror bullshit. To be fair, The Collector and The Collection had a neat little idea. Unhuman, unfortunately, was dumb as hell. AMFAD. That's actually the hashtag title here. And this stars, in, a sense, I guess, as far as people being on the cast, Jade Pettyjohn, which just sounds like she should have her own Petticoat Junction. She was in a show called Fire Country that I've heard about. Jojo Siwa or Siwa or Siwa, however the hell you say it. I've heard the name. Apparently she's some type of influencer. I know what she isn't. She isn't a fucking actress, so don't ever try to do this shit anymore. Find something else to fucking do. So speaking of the writing, the story was done by, well, one of the producers of Deep Rising, Ultraviolent, Happy Death Day, and Happy Death Day to You, and the Children of the Corn latest one. You know, that really dumb movie that sat on the shelf for like 3 fucking years, and then they realized, oh shit, we should release this. Oh, we shouldn't have made it in the first place. So Josh Sims, who's done a show called PBC, felt like taking some THC while watching this. Look, I don't mean to dump on the people for trying to get work, and I'm glad that people got paid for this, but fucking goddamn hell, this was so stupid, and they got to the point where they're like, well, let's just throw a bunch of twists in. A bunch of twists that really don't end up making all that much sense at the end of the day, and also they try to tie it and wrap it around with a story that really wasn't all that interesting to begin with. So congratulations, this movie is an epic failure on multiple levels. I hated this. I absolutely hated this. Jessica, Sarah, Flum, I assume that's how you say her name. If not, I apologize. Let's Scare Julie and Abducted, and some other films are on her filmography. Whatever, she's getting work. Jennifer Enns, not of Ennis Men. No, Ennis Men actually had a neat idea that was a little bit weird. Mostly dialogue free. I do want to shout Ali Fumiko Whitney, who she's been in some stuff. Look, I try not to dump on movies too much unless I really fucking hate them. And I just get to the point when something is so bad and annoys me from like the very beginning. Because there's the potential to grain, a crumb of an idea that's just instantly, staled, and, it just ends up being basically eaten by a goddamn bird. The bird that gets a crumb in its goddamn stomach, and then it bloats its stomach, and it blows up and everything, and the bird guts are raining down on you with all this shit and everything. And basically what I'm saying, this movie isn't very good. Are you fucking getting that, you goddamn bullshit studios? It's not very fucking good. Unfortunately, it's also one of the horror movies that is currently available on Amazon for free that you could check out that at least had a halfway decent idea, and had it leaned into the comedy, or had they had any comedy in the goddamn writing, at least good comedy, this might have worked. One-note characters, a very obvious twist, and then a very obvious another twist, and that's the thing, is I know that people may say, oh, this was unpredictable. It was unfortunately so derivative, yet incomprehensibly simple, that you couldn't help but laugh at the fact that this movie is so inept. It is so fucking terrible. I can't mix words. Fucking terrible. It starts in 2004, where apparently some murders happened. There was a killer that did something, that killed 7 people according to the 7 deadly sins. And then we flash forward 2024, something happens, and then it says 2 years later, Here's my question, by the way. So now, did I just misread that, or is this supposed to take place in 2026? Because if so, apparently humanity is going to get a lot dumber in the next 2 years. And even if it was 2024, the year of our Lord and Savior, The Substance, watch The Substance. That's good horror. Yeah, really, really stupid characters, and you don't care who dies, you don't care who lives, you don't care what happens to anybody. And they don't even offer anything worth really rooting for. They don't offer none of the death. I mean, there's like one death that features something that I sort of laughed at because it was just so ridiculous. And had it leaned more into that, I might have been okay with it. Also, I have questions as to how all this shit got set up because they try to explain it at the very end and it makes even less sense, to be perfectly honest. But nevertheless, a bunch of people are awaiting transport to a musical festival, and they are at some, Airbnb, very lavish Airbnb that has cameras all over the place because somebody is watching them like they're Rockwell. This movie should have been hit with a rock and then thrown down a well. And anybody that funded this, 13 executive producers and 4 producers. Everybody chipped in like $250 because the production values outside of the killer's mask that was electronic and everything looked really, really cheap. Really, really cheap. And I understand that independent horror movies are meant to be made on the cheap. Whole point of independent, whole point of horror, you try to make the budget work and you try to stretch it out. The thing is, Terrifier 3 had a $2 million budget. And while I am no fan of the Terrifier franchise, I enjoyed Terrifier 3, and I can't imagine that the budget for this particular movie was half of Terrifier 3. And if it was a couple $1 million, I'd sure love to know where the fuck it went, because it didn't go to star power, it didn't go to good writing, it didn't go to good camera work, it didn't go to good lighting. So evidently everybody just got paid to basically stand around and create one of the most boring, bland, basic bitch concept of a horror movie that I've seen in fucking years. So on Amazon if you want to check it out. Yeah, JoJo Siwa or Siwa or whatever. I don't necessarily have anything against her. But the few clips I've seen of her, she's weird. And if this is an example of her acting, you need to find something else to fucking do, honey, because you ain't cut out for this. I'm going to get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, there was a guy named LB. The LB stands for leaning backwards. Yeah, he ends up cheating cheating with some girl. Cheating with the girl that's in a relationship. Who would ever do that? Shut up. Basically, he films his experiences also, I guess. And there's social media stuff. There's also this message, all my friends message, and what makes me laugh about the about the font of that is it looks like it was from a Nokia phone. Like, who? Maybe not a Nokia phone necessarily, but like one of those like box phones. Like before cell phones and smartphones really, really got cooking. And an officer shows up when they blow a tire. Michaela Russell, I hope I said that right. She was cute. She looked like she was at least trying in this role. And this place is dope. Badass. Anybody who gets that, I love you guys. There's like maybe 2 people that will get that impression. The place is clean and pristine, and oh yes, and also has a killer following their every move. Why is the killer following their every move? Well, in one of the opening scenes, Colette, played by JoJo Siwa or whatever, ends up dead. She ends up dead, ends up seemingly taking her own life. Because of stuff that will become clear later. There's also a boy named Aaron that is going to get some drugs from the pharmacy that looks like a Starbucks. It's a Starbucks pharmacy because it's like wearing a green apron and everything. I don't know what the fuck kind of pharmacy that is. Maybe it's from Canada. It probably is. This screams Canadian production, but not in a good way. It screams they needed the tax write-offs to basically stretch this goddamn budget that I imagine was minuscule at best. Drinking and drugs and lots of them, and I felt like drinking and taking drugs, and I'm straight edge, so thank you. Thank you, director and writers. Thank you very much, bad characters, for making me want to break my straight edge lifestyle. How dare you, AMFAD? How fucking dare you? So I did kind of like the Young American Films thing, because it reminded me of the stuff that MST3K and also Riff Tracks did, making fun of shorts. By the way, the opening credits for this movie, 20 minutes in. This movie's 91 minutes long, and we go to 20 minutes in before we start the opening credits. Okay. Influencer was the only movie that could pull that off that I've seen in a while. There are plenty of movies I've seen where they start the credits way in, to the movie for no goddamn. Well, I mean, I think Kill did, and actually Kill was okay, but really? Like, really? So, yeah, Killer's watching them. The educational films and the clips, from, like, the 7 Deadly Sins, because that's something that ties back in. The original detective that investigated 2004 murders. There's another film festival, or music festival, film festival, whatever. This film should have been, thrown in a goddamn stump grinder, along with anybody that thought it was a good idea. Maybe a bit harsh, but I'm sorry. If this film offends me that much, I'm going to say it. So, yeah, there's cameras all over the goddamn house. Aaron gets some drugs, and he really, really liked Sarah, played by Miss Petticoat Johnson. And one guy named Guy, that's a creative name. Hi, Guy. It's not Guy from Final Fight. I would have rather played Final Fight. I would have rather played a bad version of Final Fight, aka Final Fight 3, than continue to subject myself to this bullshit. A squirrel was talking to him because Guy got high. Then he got high. Then he got shocked by somebody. And he is gluttony. There's all these glasses set up, by the way, of all these deadly sins. Because the killer is on the loose. The killer is back after 20 years. So the killer ends up doing a poison drug thing with cocaine, that kind of stuff, and whatever. And it turns out everybody knew Colette. Except Sarah. Sarah didn't know Colette. Or did she? She did. She did, by the way. This is going to be so bad was a line that was uttered in this movie. And that's a perfect encapsulation of AMFAD. AMFAD. AMFAD, where all your bad horror takes will be put on AM radio. No, not the Everclear song. Almost said 311, and I realized I would have been wrong. So, guys, guts bust out all over. Really comically bad, by the way. I know the budget was small, but come on. If you can't make something look good, don't fucking do it. So, the killer gets caught on camera, but in the mask and everything, while trying to kill a couple people having sex. It was LB and one of the girls. I think it was Mona. Could have been Liv. I don't know. The characters are so indistinct, I didn't care. Sarah didn't know about Colette, except she did. She absolutely did. So Liv gets captured, and you have to get 1,000 likes or whatever, and this bubbling cauldron that is hanging above her will not pour on her. But even though the 1,000 likes were reached, the killer takes one away, and it's 999. Bubbling cauldron falls on. LB, because he's a horny son of a bitch that apparently is in his mid-30s, feels that since Sarah's untouched, he's going to go for her. Aaron shows up, somehow, I guess, pinging them, or however you do it. He found out where they were, brings the drugs, and LB then basically gets killed by a dildo with a knife in the tip. I will admit that was actually fairly creative if the movie had been more creative like that. Not saying everything needed to be involved with dildos, but it doesn't hurt unless you don't lube and you don't know what you're doing. I'm going to get away from this because it's kind of incriminating myself, but Sarah basically, Sarah basically is not a very good liar, I do want to say. Aaron says this one line, Sarah, you know I'm allergic to blood. How are you allergic to blood? How does that fucking work? How does that fucking work? Wouldn't you basically need to be living off of something other than blood? Who fucking wrote this? Who wrote that line and thought it was a good idea? I want answers, and then I want you to realize that you are wrong, and you are terrible for writing it. So, Aaron knew this stuff with Colette too. Basically, Colette fell for Mona, and then Colette ended her life. But no, that's not it. Aaron didn't mean to be involved in this stuff. But then others were involved. Everybody basically was involved in all this stuff, and that's why everybody's dying. They also burnt the cabin down because Colette was found dead. They were trying to reason with her because it was an old shack that they used to hang out at. And Liv was still alive, apparently, and Aaron ended up getting stabbed and killed in a hallway, which was funny. It was funny to me, at least. It's so dark in this film, you can't even actually see what's going on. The weird lair. How did they build this lair? How did they have time? How much basement space did they have in this goddamn thing? I probably shouldn't be thinking too much into this, but when this movie is trying to seem smart and clever, I have questions. So, who ended up doing the killings? It was Officer Shaw. Okay. Why? Because Officer Shaw saved Sarah, who was about to end her own life, and they got together. And that's basically because Sarah knew Colette, and Colette meant a lot to her. Colette was such a good, pure-hearted person that now Sarah wanted to take revenge. And she explained all this to Mona while Mona's throat was slashed enough to not die, but enough to be immobilized. Okay. So, yes, basically, this is all to get revenge on Colette. Fine, whatever, sure. Kind of seemed a little bit obvious that Sarah was involved. But the original detective shows up, and then there was this video that was taken with LB's phone. His little selfie stick phone thing. And Officer Shaw had a tattoo right there that was referenced earlier by Guy. Once again, I do want to shout to Michaela Russell, did the best she could. If I'm saying her name wrong, I apologize. Michaela Russell, I assume. Nevertheless, who took the video? Who took the video of the cabin being burned, by the way, with all the friends staying there? Sarah did, because Sarah wanted to kill Mona, but then ended up accidentally killing Colette when Colette showed up to stop Sarah from doing all this stuff. And are you following me so far? Because the movie sure as fuck did. All this stuff was popping up in the last 15 or so minutes. Sarah then basically frames Officer Shaw because I can't help you. Like, the other officer, the original officer of the investigation, shoots her in the head. Meanwhile, news reports are sprinkled in and out of the beginning of the movie and at this point in the movie. And says, "Oh, I'm sorry, but all my friends are dead." And then smash cut to credits. And then we get a mid-credits scene. No, really, these motherfuckers thought it was a good idea to do a mid-credits scene. How fucking dare you, filmmaker? How dare you? Sequel tease. Basically, there was an earlier scene where Rick is some kind of agent. Very old agent, by the way. At least old for the influencer standards. Not even saying the actor's old. In fact, he's probably younger than I am. I'm 43. But he's talking to Sarah, and Sarah has no social media, none of this stuff. But she set all this stuff up and everything, so clearly she knows how to use social media. But her story is so tragic, and she is going to end up being a big, big hit. But she's not interested. She hangs up the phone. And then the officer's like, "Oh, this copycat stuff, all this shit going on." He said earlier, before Officer Shaw got shot. I do really actually hope they give Michaela Russell more roles, because I'd like to see what else she can do. I thought she did fine in this. And the killer then calls Sarah. "Well, you know what you did? You copied me, but you made one mistake. You pissed me off. And everyone you know is dead." And he's just able to... Okay, he's just able to know that... Are they teasing a sequel? Please don't. Please don't fucking do this. Don't subject me to this. Please don't fucking subject me to this. F. In case you didn't fucking figure it out, it gets a goddamn F. Agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.